Have you ever loved someone so deeply, only to realize they were never truly yours? What if the child calling you Mom wasn't born to you, wasn't adopted by you, but simply appeared, out of nowhere? And what if that child remembered a past you never lived? Tonight, we're diving into a story of maternal love twisted by grief. A bond born not in blood but in darkness. A woman, a child, and a secret that never belonged to this world. Stay with us because nothing is what it seems. It started with a scream, a small, piercing cry that shattered the early morning silence of the quiet suburban neighborhood. Neighbors said it came from the gray-bricked house on the corner, the one with the ivy crawling over the porch and a rusting swing set in the back. No one had seen much of the woman who lived there. She was polite, sure, smiled at the grocery store, nodded at church, but something about her always seemed too quiet, like she was holding her breath. Her name was Claire, 38, unmarried, childless, or so everyone thought. But that morning, a child came running from the house barefoot, tangled hair flying, arms scraped raw like she had climbed out of somewhere she didn't belong. She screamed one word, again and again, her voice rising into a fevered pitch as more neighbors peeked out behind curtains and screen doors. Mom! But here's the thing. Claire had never given birth. Not once. Not ever. When the police arrived, Claire was sitting on the porch, hands trembling in her lap. The little girl, 6, maybe 7, clung to her like her life depended on it. She kept saying that word, over and over, her tiny voice hoarse now. Mom, Mom, Mom. The officers asked the usual questions. Who is this child? Why is she here? Where are her parents? Claire didn't speak at first. She just stared at them, then at the girl, then back again. And finally, she whispered something that chilled every man standing there. I don't know. You could hear the wind stop. One officer knelt down in front of the girl and asked her name. Hannah, she said. And what's your mom's name? She pointed to Claire. That's my mommy. Do you live here, Hannah? She nodded fiercely, but the officers had done their homework. Claire lived alone, had always lived alone. No birth records, no custody paperwork, no school registration, no nothing. Claire was taken in for questioning. The girl was handed over to Child Protective Services. But even as they separated them, Hannah screamed. She clawed at the air like an animal being torn from its mother. Claire broke down in tears. She didn't fight the arrest. She didn't say a word, until the door closed and she was alone with a detective. Then she told them everything. At least, everything she believed was true. Claire had moved to the house 5 years ago, after her parents died within months of each other. She had been a teacher before, a good one, but left the job after a breakdown no one really talked about. Something about losing a student, a car crash, a funeral no one attended. She never fully recovered. The house was her retreat, quiet, safe, hidden, until Hannah. Claire said it began one rainy night 3 years ago. A knock at the door, just once, sharp, loud. Not a neighbor, she thought they would have called. Not a delivery, she hadn't ordered anything. When she opened the door, there was no one there. Just the wind and a small, damp cardboard box. Inside was a child. Not a newborn. Older. Maybe 3 or 4. No note. No blanket. Just her. Eyes wide open. Unblinking. Staring at Claire like she had known her for a lifetime. Claire didn't call the police. She didn't tell anyone. She couldn't explain why. She just picked up the girl and brought her inside. At first, she told herself it was temporary. Just until she figured things out. Maybe someone would come back. Maybe it was all a mistake. But days turned into weeks, and the girl never asked for anyone else. She only wanted Claire. She called her Mom by the end of the first week. And Claire, lonely, broken Claire, let her. She named her Hannah. They lived like that, quietly, secretly. Claire homeschooled her, never let her out of the house, said it was for her own safety. The world was dangerous, she said. People wouldn't understand. And Hannah believed her, loved her, trusted her completely. But then strange things started to happen. Claire would wake up in the middle of the night to find Hannah standing beside her bed, just watching her. No sound, no blinking. She started drawing things, dark, haunting things, figures with no faces, fires, graves. One picture showed Claire herself, lying in a box underground. Claire thought it was trauma, abandonment issues, maybe worse. But Hannah never cried, never asked questions about her past. She never even got sick. 3 years and not once a fever, not even a cold. Claire kept a notebook of it. Symptoms she expected. None came. The girl didn't bleed when she scraped her knees. Her hair never seemed to grow. And then, 2 nights ago, Claire found something under Hannah's bed. A newspaper clipping. Old. Yellowed. From almost 7 years ago. It was a missing child report. The girl in the photo looked exactly like Hannah. Same eyes. Same scar on the left temple. Only the name wasn't Hannah. It was Isabel Carter. Age 3. Disappeared. May 2nd, 2018. Location. 63 miles from Claire's town. Claire's heart stopped. She stared at the photo for hours, trying to rationalize it. Coincidence. A similar child. A prank? But she knew better. The next morning she asked Hannah, "Is your name Isabel?" The girl froze. Her expression didn't change, but her voice came out flat, cold. "I'm whoever you need me to be." Claire backed away, afraid for the first time. The doorbell rang. Police. A noise complaint, they said. Someone heard screaming the night before. A neighbor finally spoke up. And then Hannah ran. Out the door. Screaming for her mom. And here they were. Claire in custody. Hannah in the system. And the truth stuck somewhere in the space between reality and madness. But the story wasn't over. Because that night, as Claire sat in a holding cell staring at the wall, she felt it. Presence. She turned slowly. And there, standing behind the bars, was Hannah. Smiling. But no one else saw her. Not the guards. Not the other inmates. Only Claire. And Hannah whispered just one word. "Mom." Claire didn't sleep that night. Not after what she saw or thought she saw in the cell. No one believed her when she whispered it to the guard. No one checked the security footage. And maybe that was for the best. Because deep down, Claire wasn't sure she wanted it confirmed. What she feared most wasn't that Hannah was still out there. What she feared was that Hannah had never left. When the social worker assigned to Hannah visited Claire the next day, she came with a calm face and a clipboard full of reassurances. "We're placing her with a foster family temporarily. She's safe. She hasn't spoken much. But she keeps asking for you." Claire tried to tell her everything, the night Hannah arrived, the drawings, the missing child report. But the woman just nodded slowly, like she was used to hearing frantic stories from mothers on the edge. She wasn't listening. Or maybe she was afraid to believe it. "Claire," she said gently, "you've been under a lot of stress. Your history shows previous trauma. We think you need rest, evaluation, support." But Claire didn't need therapy. She needed the truth. After her release, pending investigation, Claire returned home. The house felt different. Colder. Like the air had been emptied of something vital. She half expected Hannah to be there, sitting in the corner with her hands folded neatly on her lap. She wasn't. But her drawings were. Piled under the bed. Taped inside the closet. Stuffed behind the radiator. Dozens of them in black crayon. Always the same imagery. Claire buried, Claire burning, Claire with hollow eyes. But there was one that stopped her heart cold. It was a picture of Hannah holding hands with a woman. Not Claire. A different woman. One with long blonde hair and a red scarf. The back of the paper had a name scrawled in shaky letters. Mommy Rachel. Claire didn't know a Rachel. But the name clung to her mind like a splinter under skin. She Googled. It didn't take long to find the story. A woman named Rachel Carter. Daughter reported missing in 2018, Isabel Carter, age 3. Rachel had searched for years, funded private investigators, even appeared on local news stations begging for information. And then she vanished. No foul play suspected. Just disappeared one day. Left her car at a rest stop. Wallet inside. No sign of her since. Claire sat frozen, rereading the article, eyes bouncing between the mother's photo and the drawing. It was her. The same woman. The red scarf. Even the freckles. Hannah or Isabel had drawn her from memory. A memory Claire couldn't have imagined. Unless it wasn't Hannah who drew it. Unless someone or something had left that picture there for Claire to find. A warning. She needed answers. And if the world wouldn't give them to her, she'd find them herself. She started with the house. Every floorboard, every crevice. She searched the attic, the basement, the crawl space. That's when she found it tucked behind the water heater, sealed in a dusty shoebox. A locket. Inside, 2 photos. One of a baby girl. And one of Rachel Carter. Claire dropped it like it burned. Because now she knew. Hannah wasn't hers. She never had been. And she wasn't left at the doorstep by accident. She was delivered. Claire drove to the town where Isabel had gone missing. She told herself it was just to see. Just to understand. But deep down, something else pulled her there, a force she couldn't explain. The town was small. The kind where everyone knows each other and no one forgets a tragedy. She went to the diner first. Asked about Rachel Carter. The waitress stiffened. You a cop? No. Just. I knew her daughter. A long pause. She was never the same after Isabel disappeared, the woman said, eyes darting around. Started talking about voices. Dreams. Said she felt Isabel was alive. People laughed. Said she was grieving. But then she started saying something else. What? The woman leaned in close. She said her daughter was with someone else. A woman. Said she saw it. In dreams. Said the woman was kind but broken. Claire's mouth went dry. She described me, didn't she? She asked, voice barely audible. The waitress looked at her carefully. Then nodded. She said she didn't hate you. Said you were the reason Isabel survived. But she had to find her. Had to bring her back. Claire's hands were trembling now. What happened to her? They found her coat by the lake. They said she drowned. But they never found a body. Claire left without finishing her coffee. She drove to the lake. The wind had picked up, cold and sharp. The water rippled like a sheet of glass being shredded. Claire walked to the edge and stared out, hoping for what? A ghost? A sign? And then she saw it. A red scarf tangled in the branches of a tree. Faded, worn, but unmistakable. She reached out to touch it, and that's when the voice came. Mom. Claire spun. Hannah stood behind her. Pale. Still. Like she'd stepped out of a painting. Her eyes were different now. Too deep. Too old. I missed you, she said. Claire's throat closed. You're not real. I'm more real than anything you've ever loved, Hannah whispered. Claire backed away. Who are you? She gasped. I'm the piece you lost, Hannah said. The part you buried. The love you gave when you had none left. Tears welled up in Claire's eyes. Why me? Because you needed me, she said. Claire sank to her knees. The wind howled around her, but she didn't feel the cold. She only felt the weight of grief, of guilt, of love twisted into something it was never meant to be. Hannah walked closer. She reached out a hand. And Claire took it. For a moment, everything was still. No past. No future. Just 2 souls shattered and stitched together by something darker than fate. Claire wasn't sure how long she sat by the lake after that, her hands still holding the child's, her breath shallow, eyes unfocused. But when she blinked again, the sky had shifted. Darker now? Heavier. The trees swayed with an unnatural rhythm, like they were bowing towards something only they could see. And Hannah was gone. Just like that. No footsteps. No goodbye. Just absence, so sudden, so complete, it felt like a vacuum had opened inside Claire's chest. She drove home on instinct alone, fingers tight around the wheel. Every corner of the road seemed too dark. Every face at the gas station seemed to watch her too long. Something was shifting around her now, like her reality was no longer tethered to the rules it once followed. The drawings were still there when she got back. But now they'd changed. Every figure had black holes for eyes. In every scene, Claire was no longer just dead or buried, she was reaching up from a coffin, screaming. Her mouth wide open as if the paper itself had recorded the sound. And in the background of every one, a silhouette. Tall. Thin. Wearing a red scarf. She wasn't alone in this. That night, Claire didn't sleep in her bedroom. She sat in the hallway with the lights on, gripping the locket she'd found like it might protect her. She tried calling the number listed for Rachel's last known employer. Disconnected. She called the sheriff's office in the town she'd visited. They promised to look into it. She knew they wouldn't. And then the power went out. No storm. No warning. Just click. Dark. Silence. Then footsteps. Not heavy, not human. Soft. Bare. Like a child walking across cold hardwood. Claire didn't move. She barely breathed. But when the footsteps reached the top of the stairs, they stopped. Then, a voice. Mom. Claire snapped. She grabbed the flashlight and ran. Downstairs. Into the basement. She didn't know why, but something in her bones screamed go down, not up. She found the breaker. Flipped it. Light returned. But she wasn't alone in the basement. There, crouched in the far corner, was a figure. Not Hannah. Not quite. It had her face, but twisted. A smile that didn't move. Eyes that gleamed like polished stone. It tilted its head slowly, like a curious animal. Claire stepped back. The figure didn't move. And then it whispered. You should have stayed, broken. She screamed and ran. Out of the house. Into the street. She didn't stop until she reached the neighbor's porch, banging on the door until her fists hurt. They called the police. Again. But by the time they arrived, the figure was gone. The basement was empty. No sign of a break-in. They looked at Claire like she was losing it. And maybe she was. But not completely. Because the next morning, someone knocked at her door. An old woman. Wrinkled hands. Pale eyes. She introduced herself as June, Rachel Carter's aunt. I saw the news, she said. Saw what happened with the girl. I knew it had to be her. Claire's knees almost gave out. They sat at the kitchen table. June didn't blink much. She spoke slowly with the kind of certainty that only comes from deep, festering grief. Rachel was never crazy, she said. Not even when they said she was. That girl, your girl, she isn't just a missing child. Claire clenched the edge of her seat. She's something older. What do you mean? Claire whispered. She's been here before, June said. Different names. Different faces. But always the same hunger. Claire shook her head. Hunger for what? June leaned in. Love? She told her the story. Long ago, before the town had a name, there was a woman who lost her child in the woods. She searched for days, weeks, until her feet bled. When she finally gave up, she wandered into the lake and drowned. But her grief didn't stay buried. It twisted into something vengeful. Her spirit found children, abandoned ones, lost ones, and used them. Wore them like clothing. Fed on the sorrow of the people who loved them. She doesn't want to kill you, June said. Not at first. She wants to be loved. And when she is, when you give her that love. Claire could barely speak. What happens? She takes everything. Claire's mouth was dry. So what do I do? June took a slow breath. You break the bond. How? You make her remember who she was. Before the spirit. Before the grief. But what if there's nothing left? June looked her straight in the eye. Then you bury what's left. And you don't look back. Claire didn't sleep that night. Instead, she opened every box of Hannah's drawings. She pinned them on the walls. She lit candles. And then she did something she hadn't done in years. She prayed. Not for salvation. But for clarity. And then the house groaned. Not creaked. Not settled. Groaned. A deep, aching sound like the foundation itself was in pain. And Claire knew. She was no longer the one being haunted. She was the one who had invited it. Claire didn't know what she was anymore, a mother, a victim, a fool, or just another vessel. But as she stood in the center of that house, lit only by flickering candles and surrounded by a child's drawings soaked in grief and shadow, she knew this. She had opened a door, and now it would not close on its own. The air was thick. Too still. The kind of silence that comes before something breaks. She held the locket in her hands, the photo of Rachel Carter and the baby now smudged with oil from her fingers. She stared into those familiar eyes, eyes that had once belonged to someone real. Someone lost. Someone who may still be screaming, unheard, in the place where sorrow goes to rot. She whispered a name. Isabel. The walls creaked. Then soft footsteps upstairs. Claire didn't flinch. She climbed the stairs slowly, deliberately, like walking into a grave she had chosen. At the end of the hall stood Hannah. But this time she looked different. Older. Taller. Her face was sharper, as if time had finally caught up. Her eyes were no longer glassy innocence, they were pools of knowing, deep and endless. She smiled. You called me. Claire nodded. I didn't know who you were before, she said. But I do now. Hannah tilted her head, curious. Do you still love me? Claire's voice trembled. I don't know what you are. I'm your daughter, the girl said. You raised me. You fed me. You held me when I cried. Claire took a step closer. And yet, I don't even know if you were ever real. Hannah's face twitched barely. A crack in the porcelain. That's not fair, she whispered. No, Claire said, stronger now. What's not fair is taking the pieces of broken people and calling it love. Hannah's eyes narrowed. You needed me. Yes. I did, Claire admitted. And I still do. But not like this. There was a long silence between them, as if the house itself was holding its breath. Claire opened the locket and held it out. This is your mother. Hannah stared. She died looking for you, Claire said. Not because she hated you. Because she loved you too much. She loved you enough to walk into the dark, hoping to bring you back. The girl's expression didn't change, but her hands began to tremble. I'm not Isabel, she muttered. Claire stepped closer. Then who are you? Silence. I don't know, the girl said finally. I was Isabel once. But then I wasn't. Then I was lost. Then I was needed. And now? Claire asked. Now Hannah looked small again. She sat down on the floor, knees pulled to her chest. I don't want to go, she said. Claire knelt beside her. Then don't. But you have to stop pretending. I don't know how. Claire reached forward and took her hand. We'll remember together. That's when the house began to shake. Not a little. Not like a storm. It was as if the very earth was rejecting what stood inside it. Candles blew out. The walls cracked. Drawings tore themselves from the walls, spiraling into the air like blackbirds. And in the center of it all, Hannah began to change. Her eyes turned white. Her hair lifted. She screamed not in fear, but in grief. A sound so deep, so ancient, it seemed to vibrate the bones in Claire's body. But Claire held on. I see you, she said. I see the girl who was taken. The girl who was abandoned. The girl who wanted to be loved so badly she forgot who she was. Hannah's scream faded. The room grew quiet. And for the first time, Hannah cried. Real tears. They hit the wooden floor like rain. Then she whispered, will you let me go? Claire nodded, eyes wet. Yes. And just like that she was gone. No flash. No wind. No sound. Just absence. But this time it didn't feel like loss. It felt like peace. The days that followed were quiet. The house felt lighter, as if it had exhaled something it had been holding far too long. Claire donated all the drawings to a local art therapist. She kept the locket. And sometimes, just sometimes, she'd wake up in the middle of the night and hear a voice in the hallway. Mom. But it wasn't a haunting anymore. It was a memory. And she could live with that. She called her Mom. And maybe in the strangest way she was. Not by blood. Not by name. But by the love that endured even when truth crumbled. What would you do if the child in your arms wasn't entirely human, but still needed you to love her just once more? If this story gripped you, don't forget to subscribe, share, and join us for more tales that blur the line between love and the unexplainable. Until next time, keep your doors closed and your heart guarded.